The BMW i brand has a new flagship. It's more powerful, has a longer driving range, and it knocks off the roof. That's the i8 Roadster, the car we're going to drive today on the program. Welcome to a brand new episode. I'm Siddharth Vinayak Partnkar. We're in Mallorca to drive this gorgeous car. Let's get started.
Sun, cool mountain-like air and gorgeous views of the Mediterranean. Not the combination you find everywhere, and so Mallorca was the perfect setting to test the new BMW i8 Roadster. Any open top needs that intoxicating combination to really work. The BMW i8 has always been hailed for its extremely futuristic, cutting-edge design and technology. I've been taken through the work carried out to create the open-top version and how costs were kept in check to make the project feasible. So, think of the i8 Roadster then as a new model rather than a new body style or just a variant offering, and you won't be wrong.
So of course the Roadster picks up from where the i8 left off. In terms of styling, you still get that nice futuristic look of the car. It's low slung, typical sports car, and yet very modern, like I said. Roadster badging makes it more obvious on the side. And then it's really, as you come to the back, except for the fact that of course the roof's gone, that you also start to see a slight difference in the styling, because it is this element of the car that has been changed so that the roof can open and fold in there. So that's really the big difference styling wise. And with the Roadster, we of course got this new copper color as well. And it is the color. We showed you the car for the first time in from the global motor shows, and it was also displayed at our Auto Expo in New Delhi.
The Roadster was always meant to provide all the things any convertible does. The wind in your hair, the sun warming your spirits, while enjoying the exhilaration of ample performance capability. The aluminium chassis and carbon fiber shell combination maintain a surprising amount of rigidity and stability even with the roof gone. And with the rear seats gone as well, since the Roadster is a classic two-seater, the roof line of the folding top could be angled sharply downward, giving the i8 Roadster a much racier silhouette than its roofed sibling.
Now because that folded roof doesn't really take up too much space, you get a little extra luggage space back here. Now you've got 3 compartments as you can see, but you can actually fold this down and create, well, enough room for like a carry-on bag there if you like. The partitions are just so if you keep a smaller bag and it doesn't kind of slide around. 90 liters of extra space back there, which you might think is not so important, could come in really handy.
The roof is a special fabric, but it's supported by an entire panel that sits below the cloth, giving it structure. That panel and frame are also made with carbon fiber. That's another first. Overall, the Roadster is just 60 kgs heavier than the coupe. That's pretty unheard of.
Now, unlike most roof systems, electric roof systems that is, this one isn't hydraulic. It's also run using electric motors. The reason for that? Well, so that the whole operation is also nice and sort of silent, in keeping with the nice quiet nature of the electric mode of the car itself.
The fun factor is very intact with the car, as it displays that incredible stiffness and therefore impeccable handling that the coupe always had.
So of course, overall, the amount of power that you get and of course the driving range have both gone up. Now that's not just on the Roadster, it's on the regular coupe as well, but it's with the Roadster that this new powertrain has been introduced. We've told you all that before, so I won't bore you with the details. The new number though does sound obviously a little bit better with the extra 12 horses. Now, the big point here though is that all the sort of learnings and takeaways from the coupe, which came out a few years ago, have gone back into the car to just make driving dynamics that much better as well. And so even suspension settings have been completely reworked to try and give you an even more sporty experience.
The car responds in a sports car-like fashion, and you can't help but constantly keep that fact that it's a plug-in hybrid at the back of your mind. The i8 Roadster will do 0 to 100 kilometers in 4.6 seconds. It has an electronically limited top speed of 250 kilometers per hour.
Now the car's default drive setting is to stay in auto e-drive, and that means it's optimally trying to manage both the systems, the ICE engine as well as the electric motor. And if you do want to of course go in pure electric mode, then you press the e-drive button down here, and then the car will travel up to 53 kilometers on pure electric mode. And in that mode you can also kind of push it because it can go up to speeds of 120 kilometers per hour.
Torque from the electric motor housed in the front of the car goes directly to the front wheels that it powers. Peak torque stands at 250 Nm, while the petrol engine that powers the rear wheels has 320 Nm of peak torque. This system is what gave the coupe and now the Roadster its incredible agility.
Now when you're driving the i8, coupe or Roadster, you can get caught up in the fact that it is a plug-in hybrid, but you have to also remember that it is at the end of the day a sports car, and so it has to have that characteristic, and that's where having that carbon fiber that's been used in the construction of the car really comes to the fore, because it's so nice and stiff. The integrity of it, especially here on the mountain roads, really comes to light, and I have to say that's the part that you enjoy the most.
The stiff dynamics keep you firmly planted, and the steering is also up to the task, staying precise. All of that gets even stiffer and more dynamic when you flick the gear lever to the left and engage sport mode.
It's threatening to rain later on, so before that happens and I have to put the roof up, I think I should enjoy the car in sport mode as well. Switch it to sport, the system completely changes, the display turns red, and of course the engine comes to life too.
The big negative for me is the extra thickness in that A-pillar that's been put in on the Roadster. It creates quite an obstruction, and on mountain roads in particular, it was a bit of a challenge to have to look around it from both sides. BMW engineers told me that a lot of work has been carried out to cut the wind noise that is bound to be a problem in any convertible. But overall, I found that wind noise is that Achilles heel then for this car.
So that's the good thing, you still have a nice sound of that engine. There's a lot of wind noise though on the Roadster that's bound to happen when you take the top off, but I have to say it's bothering me a little bit today. The sound of the engine though, it's nice, like I said, it still remains nice and throaty, and there's a good growl to it despite the fact that, remember, it's just the 1.5 3-cylinder. Now, I said this during the time of driving the coupe, and so I'm happy that some of that stays. And remember that a lot of that sound is enhanced by speakers on board, and on the Roadster, it actually varies how much of that sound comes into the cabin. So when you've got the roof up, well, then you've got more of that being enhanced inside the cabin. When the roof's down, then not so much. And here's the interesting thing. When you're in the process of folding the roof up or down, well, the speakers regulate that sound so that you never hear a different intensity of that volume. You always hear the engine exactly the same.
The car sounds its snorty, roaring best in sport mode naturally, and that's best displayed on the highway where you can indulge in fast overtaking maneuvers and high-speed cruising. On the twisty mountain roads, it was a tad muted for my liking, even though the car did everything I wanted. Taking tight corners with finesse and accelerating out of them with ease.
The cabin is very similar to what we've seen on the i8 before in terms of layout. The virtual cluster, iDrive, the updated latest version, of course. The only difference, of course, is that you open this up and you have the little button now to operate the roof that opens and closes, and you can operate that up to speeds of 50 kilometers per hour.
The i8 Roadster's cabin is sumptuous, nicely designed and well crafted. The use of leather and carbon fiber has been cleverly and intentionally directed to enhance the sports car feel. The car's central console houses the screen with the new iDrive with its touchpad topped dial. The car's new smart key lets you check on its location, battery and fuel levels, and also fold up or down the roof and windows remotely. The lithium-ion battery takes under 2 hours for an 80% charge and just under 3 for a 100% charge. That's using a fast charger, and so a domestic outlet will charge the car to full in 4.5 hours. There is regenerative onboard charging too, of course, that helps enhance battery power while on the move. The i8 Roadster's claimed mileage in the European test cycle is 50 kilometers per litre. So all of that is impressive, isn't it? Yes, indeed. Expect the i8 Roadster to be launched in India later this year. Expect prices to stay well above 3 crore rupees when it touches down.
The Mercedes-Benz C-Class is the German luxury automaker's most popular bread-and-butter model worldwide, and the current generation car has now received its midlife facelift. First things first, the visual updates on the new C-Class aren't as extensive as some of the updates that the previous generations got. This means that the headlamps and tail lamps remain pretty much the same, but get a major tech upgrade. You now get LED lights as standard on all models, and the ones we had on the C200 look almost alien-like. Very cool. You also get updated tail lamps, new sportier bumpers, and of course a new set of wheels. The interior though gets a big update. The C-Class has always been a great cabin in terms of design, and that now gets even better. You get the steering wheel from the S-Class with a touch sensor along with a slightly updated seat design. There's also a brand new infotainment system that now finally gets Apple CarPlay, but more importantly, Mercedes-Benz brand new user interface. Much cleaner and more usable than before. And yes, an all-digital instrument cluster replaces the analog dials. Also a direct lift from the S-Class.
Now, apart from all the exterior bits which have been updated with LED headlamps, tail lamps, etc., and of course that big change on the interior with the new infotainment system or the digital screen, the other big change in the car, and actually the more important one, is actually the engine under the bonnet. Now, the 2-litre engine in the older C200, which is the one we get in India, has now been replaced, and as is the case with every automaker, downsizing is the name of the game. So this one has gone from a 2-litre 4-cylinder turbo unit to a 1.5-litre 4-cylinder turbo unit. Now, before you start screaming about how small engines aren't exactly apt for a large car, remember this one still makes 184 horsepower and 270 Newton meters of torque. So the figures do match what this car generally, a car of this size and generally should have. That said, the way it drives is a little different.
You can't really tell the change in engine size until you are at higher speeds when you hear the engine working overtime to get that power out. That said, there's no lag as this engine also has a mild hybrid system called EQ Boost. The car comes equipped with a 48-volt battery that is stored just under the boot floor that gives the engine some extra kick under certain conditions. Essentially, what it does is give the engine an extra 13 bhp of power while the turbo is still building up boost. Once the turbo kicks in and starts doing its work, the engine then takes over and becomes a standard forced induction petrol motor once again. And this means no lag, no hesitation, and much better driving experience at lower speeds. Apart from the smaller 1.5-litre engine which will now replace the C200 in India, the C-Class sedan will also get more powerful engines in the petrol and diesel range. You will get a C300 petrol, which is the same engine as the one on the C-Class Cabriolet, and for the first time a C300D, which will then replace the C250D in the range.
But it's not just the regular C-Class that's gone through a whole bunch of upgrades, it's also the other one that we get in India, the C43. Now, there are a few certain differences between the normal car and the C43. Prime, of course, is the new headlamp cluster. While the C-Class, the standard C-Class headlamps now, the LED ones, look really cool. They almost look alien in a way. These ones are actually much nicer. So they have a whole bunch more technology packed into that little cluster. There, you've got cornering lights, etc. A lot more technology, though they look a lot simpler. In fact, they look almost similar to the older ones. Moving on, you have a new bumper, new diffuser on the bottom, a little more aggressive in terms of design. New wheels also, of course, on a facelift. And then you go around the back, you have the big change on the C43. Most people actually thought the C43 didn't look a lot different from the standard car, especially if you had the AMG package on it. This one now, the new one, does. The big difference, that new very aggressive diffuser on the bottom and those telltale AMG quad pipes. Now remember, the older AMGs did get those quad pipes. They have moved to a more trapezoidal design now on the C63. The 43 gets those back, and those are very, very cool. They scream performance, and even though this is the mid-range performance variant for the AMG range, that looks really cool, and now the car looks a lot more purposeful as compared to the one before. Now the updates on the C43 aren't just on the outside with the new headlamps, tail lamps and wheels, etc. and on the inside with this new infotainment screen, digital screen on the instrument cluster. There's actually much more. The Germans have done what they do best, added a little bit more power to that engine up front. Now it's still the same 3-litre V6 bi-turbo engine, and it still has all-wheel drive, but now with 390 horsepower, which is a good increase of power from the previous generation. It is a little bit more responsive, it is a little bit more powerful, and it actually is a little bit faster. So 0 to 100 gets disposed of in about 4.6 seconds, and it is limited electronically to 250 kilometers an hour, which you can do all day long on the German autobahns like we've been doing today, and then hit the countryside, use that all-wheel drive to its max, and even on these twisty backcountry roads in Germany, you still feel like a rally driver. This car is as usable as it ever was, and now it's even better. It is by far the nicest all-round AMG that you can buy, of course, without having that incredible V8 engine that the 63s have.
So there you have it. More power from the AMGs, more efficiency from the standard car, and a much better package all around. Expect the launch of the new C-Class facelift in the next few months, and prices to increase ever so slightly as compared to the lineup it will replace.
So that then is our comprehensive look at the new BMW i8 Roadster. You got to react to the car. Please tell me how you like it. You know, you can get in touch with me on Twitter or on Facebook. And I promise to be back next week with plenty more. In the meanwhile, please wear your seatbelts, wear your helmets. Bye-bye.